It is week 4 of the Columbia football season. It's the latest edition of the John Poppy Coaches Show as Columbia looks to wrap up non-conference play on the road against Wagner. As usual, we're joined by the head coach of the Columbia football team. John, appreciate the time as always. Let's start with the significance of how strong this team has started off, because you've recorded your first win over a top 15 ranked team since 1995, and now you top Princeton for the first time at home since 2010. Now, I know there's a lot of football still remaining, so you don't want to get too high, but in all seriousness, how do you put that in perspective to your team in terms of the significance of these building blocks that have been piling up in the early going?
Yeah, it's a testament to how hard they've worked, and I've said this in the first, show, is the sacrifice they made this summer and being together as a team, right? You had 60-plus guys here over the summer and working that way and for these moments, right, for these results. And now it's how do we finish? All right, all that stuff is good and well and great, but now with the season ahead on the horizon, how are we going to continue to progress and make sure we're putting our best foot forward each week?
A big turning point to me in the Princeton game. Early fourth quarter, it's 4th and 5 from the Princeton 14. It's a 3-point game, and you could have contemplated kicking a field goal, but you chose to keep your offense on the field, and Chase Goodwin is inches away from being sacked. He rolls out, he scores a touchdown. If you could take me through, John, the process prior to the game, in the moment of when you determine you want to keep your offense on the field, and how much of an X factor Chase proved to be on that play.
Yeah, so analytics, kind of help us out with certain decision makings, time of game, and how much time's on the clock. And on that sheet, it actually said 4th and 5 is 50-50 field goal, go for it. And before the third down, I said as long as we didn't lose a yard, we were going for it. And so defense knew that. We're all communicated. Defense is ready to go in case Chase or our offense does get stopped. And then Coach Verbit brought zero pressure. Chase did a great job making the free runner miss. And then Joey Georgie did a great job sealing the edge, putting body on a body just enough for Chase to take the corner. And then since they're in man coverage, there wasn't anybody left to kind of have that second contain on Chase, and he proved us right. So, amen.
Absolutely, and it shows what a difference maker is when you have a mobile quarterback. The other thing that stood out in the second half of that contest is the complementary aspects of your team. The defense holding Princeton to 3 punts on the last 4 possessions, and then the offense responding when Princeton scored that touchdown to make it 20-17. What stood out to you about the fact that they sort of backed up one another, which you don't always see game to game?
Yeah, the confidence level and the faith they have in each other. And that goes back to competitions in practice, good versus good periods where we're still getting that live speed and the competitive fire that still exists even after preseason, still now, how they want to win the drill and put their best foot forward as a unit. And to see everything come to fruition on Saturday in that sense where offense scores to go up 10 points, in 2 possessions, and then the defense comes back and gets a stop, force them to be maybe one-dimensional because our offense took some time off the clock, was how you write the script as a coach.
I think most teams that play Columbia, if they look at the box score and they see Columbia's number 1 wide receiver is held to 1 catch for 4 yards, they like their chances. And I'm referring to Bryson Canty. Of course, he was limited a little bit because of injury. But what does it say, John, about your team and the dynamics of your offense that after he scored 3 touchdowns in the first 2 games, he wasn't as prominent of a factor, but you still scored over 30 points for the second time in 3 games?
Yeah, it's a testament to just the players, right? Investing as if, when's my time going to be called and I'm ready to go. And so Marcus Littman had a touchdown catch his first of the year. Titus Evans comes in and has multiple catches and some huge first down conversions. And then you got still Dougherty catching a couple balls, right? And then you have the run game mixed in with Joey to take some pressure off of Chase and Malcolm obviously using his legs as well. So I think all those factors and just the number of guys stepping up is awesome, and that's a testament to Coach Gallagher and getting those guys ready, our receivers coach and Coach Bowdy and the offensive staff. Just making sure guys are ready to play and we're having fun, and it could be anyone's moment anytime, and that's what makes us tough to stop, as I've said.
It also is tough to stop the run game, as we've seen over the last few weeks. The best way to finish a game is in victory formation. I'm sure you would attest to that. What impressed me, though, John, on that final drive, Princeton knew you were going to run the football, right? The goal is you want to run out the clock. And despite that, you were still effectively able to execute the runs by Joey Georgie, Malcolm Terry, when it looked like maybe they were going to lose yards, still fighting, even if it was a 3-yard run, a 4-yard run. Where does that come from in terms of what you're seeing out of the backfield, and what does it say about the offensive line being able to finish a game that the previous week, unfortunately, you weren't able to close?
Yeah, I think it's just switch back in the mentality, right? And getting back to who we are and doing the things that have made us successful as an offense. And I felt like our offensive line did a great job working through some of the blitzes, especially the second half adjustments that Coach Verbit made, more aggressive play calling. I thought our offensive line seamlessly picked up some of those things, and that's a testament to them and how they were prepared. And there was a couple of runs there where Malcolm made a guy miss or Joey made a guy miss in the backfield, because sometimes those blitzes can be successful, right? And that just shows how much fight they have just to not let their teammates down. And it was a great way to finish that game. And we even had James Lill, our backup center, come in to finish that when Chapman went down with some cramping. We held him out, and to see James perform in that final drive was a great thing for our future as well.
And also, as a result of the production on the ground, Joey Georgie gets Ivy League Offensive Player of the Week. Then you got Hayden McDonald wins Defensive Player of the Week. I mean, the only thing missing was special teams, but you're building up the accolades. How much do you think the players are feeding off of that, John? The fact that there has been recognition within the league in terms of what they're doing on a weekly basis?
I think they'll be the first to say that's credit to their teammates, right? The guys around them doing the things that allow them those opportunities, right? Joey with running the football, and it could be the offensive line, it could be the receivers on the perimeter blocking that have a hand in that, right? And I know Joey's as selfless as they come, and that's why getting him, I think it was 15 carries or 18 carries, and Malcolm has 10 to 15 carries. So having two guys that can balance each other that way and stay fresh, hopefully for the long haul of a season, is crucial as well. So the individual accolades, while fun, I don't think that's the driving force and the most celebrating thing to those individuals.
Well, coming up on the John Poppy Coaches Show, we'll give you an update on the state of the Columbia defensive line going into the game against Wagner. We talked about the run game. Well, Joey Georgie and Malcolm Terry have some competition, and his name is Chase Goodwin, and he certainly is living up to his first name on the ground in his production. He's no longer a secret weapon, but we'll find out more about the Columbia starting quarterback next here on the John Poppy Coaches Show, which you're watching on GoColumbiaLions.com.
My name's Chase Goodwin. I'm a sophomore quarterback from Houston, Texas. I got into playing football, I think from my dad, honestly. I've been playing it since I was about this tall. Really, I've never known anything other than that. So I think I came out the womb with a football in my hand. And just that's all I ever knew and all I ever played. One thing I think that people probably don't know about me is baseball has always been my first love. So I'm a huge Astros fan, and so I would be an Astros fan over all of them. But I am a Houston sports fan in general. I love the Texans, love the Rockets. So I wound up at Columbia. I was just doing the camp circuit, the recruiting circuit. I knew that I wanted to go to a school where I could not only play football, but also get a great education. And obviously, Columbia offers the best of both worlds. And when I came up here, came to camp, visited, it really was just a perfect match. Like I fell in love with facilities, the campus, New York City in general, and just the people here, and it's been awesome. And so that kind of drove me to come here. And then adjusting to New York from Texas, it took me a while. It took me a good solid few months. It's a lot faster pace, not as slow moving, but that excitement is something that was a big reason why I wanted to come here in the first place. So it's been a journey, but now that I'm used to it, it's awesome, and I'm in love with it. Favorite meal? I was put on to delis for the first time when I came here. That wasn't a huge thing in Houston. So I would say a late night chopped cheese from Spicy's Deli, which is on 109th in Amsterdam, which is right where we live. That's probably my go-to meal right here. Everyone around me was just super welcoming. The team has just such a great culture, especially the older guys, of welcoming the new guys in and making them feel right at home, kind of off the gate in training camp, which is awesome. And then kind of just moving on from freshman to sophomore year, I just was very fortunate to have a bunch of really, really great guys around me, like teammates, who kind of make my job easy. It's easy to go out and do my thing when I got some awesome skill players on the outside and some amazing O-linemen, and then obviously this new coaching staff has really just brought a life and fire that's really exciting and cool to be a part of. I came here, when I committed here, as a freshman, my goal was to eventually be the starting quarterback. My goal was to make the travel team freshman year, which fortunately I was able to do. And then once Caden and Joe, graduated and the job was kind of up for grabs, that was the number one priority, is to do whatever I can to fight and compete and try and win the spot. And I fortunately was able to do so. And I've never really let go of that mentality. I always play with that chip on my shoulder, so I think that's where some of the emotion and fire comes from sometimes. I rely a lot on my coaches and the guys that are above me. Like Pat and CJ are great examples, our captains, of how to lead and how to lead by example. And I think that's the biggest motivating factor for me is I can't go out there and tell people, to do this and this and this and try and lead people if I'm not doing that myself. So I try and focus on leading by example and kind of having that fire and drive in me, and then hopefully, guys can build off of that. And I think I've found hopefully a pretty good rhythm. I think the resiliency of this team, I think it starts with Coach Poppy. I mean, he's just such a fiery and passionate guy. And when he just gets rolling, talking to the team, I mean, he's got every single person, all 100 and however many people ready to run through a brick wall for him. And so it just gets us fired up. And then they've been huge, Coach Poppy and then Coach Stovall and Coach Saitu, our two coordinators, have been huge on just a next play mentality. It doesn't matter what just happened. We're always looking ahead to the next play and just living in that moment. And I think, we've used kind of that fire and that chip on our shoulder. We weren't the team that we wanted to be last year. And then especially going up against Princeton, who's had our number the past few years, we knew that's not how we wanted it to go. So we next play mentality and went out and were able to execute. We always say it, and Pat Pastelacqua does a great job of saying it as well as CJ. We haven't proven anything yet. We've won 2 games, and one of them was out of conference and doesn't mean anything for the Ivy League. And obviously our goal is much greater to win an Ivy League championship. So they've done a great job of just communicating that the job is never finished. We've always got to stay hungry and stay with that chip on our shoulder. At the end of the day, people still look at us as the 3-17 from last year. And we always got to come into each game with that mindset and that mentality. And that's when we play like that, when we play hungry like that, I mean, it feels like no one can stop us. For the team, obviously, we want to win an Ivy League championship, but that starts on a weekly basis. So right now, it's having the best day of practice today, having the best day of practice tomorrow, and then going out and executing versus Wagner. That's the only thing we're focused on. And I don't have an individual goal. It's all about the team. So what we accomplish is what satisfies me. So.
Lance Meadow back here with you on the John Poppy Coaches Show as we get set for the final non-conference game against Wagner in Staten Island. So to look ahead to that game, I want to start with the state of your team first, Coach. One of the things that we didn't touch on in the first segment, unfortunately, Justin Townsend went down with a knee injury in the last game against Princeton after getting his first sack of the season. What is the latest in terms of his status, and how do you go about making up for his absence?
Yeah, so Justin tore his ACL, so he will be out for the remainder of the season. And as we move forward, Coach McLaughlin, Coach Stovall have done a great job rotating guys in. I mean, defensive line is one of those positions where you can play 8 to 10 a game, and thankfully we've done that already. So now it's just guys stepping up into maybe playing 10 more plays a game, if that. So you have, James Knox, who came back in the Princeton game and showed some good flashes, right? And now he'll step up into that starter role. And then you have guys like Aiden Baker, who's already played in all 3 games and played a lot of reps, and Quinn Herrely as well. And then maybe even some younger guys, and Luke Walker, who's a first year, and then Keelan Cornegie getting a little bit more action and opportunity to play as well.
Justin clearly stood out from a statistical standpoint. One guy in particular is not going to replace him, but you've seen this from your work with other programs, even with the Ivy League, the value of having that defensive line rotation and how maybe one guy may not stand out, but you could still get that team production to help offset the absence of such a game changer.
No question. You can build that into your scheme as well. right? In terms of running some more twists or pressures or blitzes. I mean, we can find ways or guys that are really good on first and second down, and then find the guy who's better on third down to try to replicate some of the statistical success that Justin had and why he was such a factor. It might not just be the one guy, as you alluded to, but it's going to be a team of guys that have their strengths, and we got to make sure we're putting those guys in those positions.
And if Levi Robbins continues to get pressure, who knows? He may be an addition to your defensive line as well.
I mean, I don't know about that, but he can definitely do some things in the perimeter and make some plays, as tough as he is.
He has certainly stood out in the opponent's backfield from that standpoint. So let's look ahead to this matchup against Wagner. This is a team that's unique because they have such multi-diverse personnel, and they bring in that personnel from various different programs and so forth, some former FBS players. How big of a challenge is this in terms of what many would say it's a tune-up for the remainder of Ivy League play, but maybe you could get even more out of a contest like this?
Yeah, from the tune-up standpoint, it's another physical game. Like, Wagner plays a physical brand of football. They want to run the ball, then they want to attack it down the field in an explosive manner in the pass game. And the other side of it is you're playing against FBS talent. And I think there's a lot of guys on our roster that see themselves in that light, and now they get a chance to prove it. So I think that's an awesome opportunity for our guys to go against some talented, skill players, linemen, because Wagner has it all, in all three levels of their defense and offense. And now it's, okay, guys, put your money where your mouth is, and let's show them what you can do, if that makes sense.
From a statistical standpoint, John, two things stand out to me about Wagner. They already have 7 interceptions, which is a high volume, and they've got the number 1 pass defense in the NEC. So clearly they have some ball hawks on the back end. The fact that you've been establishing the run from a strategic standpoint, how much is this a game where maybe you can continue to dictate the tone on the ground because they are so strong on the back end of their defense?
Yeah, I just think we got to keep staying with ourselves and be as multiple as we can, right? Whether it's formationally, it's personnel-based, or it's scheme-based. Because that's what I think led us to success in our 2 wins, right? Is that we were unpredictable. And we did a great job balancing run-pass. And I think if you ask Coach Saitu, we think we can call any play at any time. And that's what true balance is. And so whether it's they're loading the box to take away a run game and we have to attack up top, we're gonna do that. If they're playing a little softer in coverage because we've shown to push the ball down the field, then it gives us a chance to open up the run game. But this defensive line is very physical. They're big, so we got to do a great job of making sure we're securing double teams to get to their second level, which they love their linebackers to run. And if we can do that, we should have some success on the ground for sure.
Before I let you go, obviously this is the last game before it's all Ivy League moving forward. Not to say once again that the priority is not to win, but I would think it's also an opportunity, especially as you're trying to build depth on the defensive line to replace Justin Townsend. You've been using even Griffin Johnson as a running back. How much is this another opportunity for you and the staff to evaluate your roster in gameplay before obviously every game is that much more important and put under the microscope?
There's no question. That's why we have some different personnel packages this week, and we're excited to, give some things for people to prepare for and have some surprise elements for Wagner. And that should hopefully bode well for the future to see what's going to work and what makes sense for us to continue to invest our time in practice and maybe not invest in based on the success of Saturday.
Coach, it's always a pleasure. I wish you the best of luck this weekend.
Appreciate you. Awesome.
You got it. Absolutely. It's Columbia against Wagner on the road, the final non-conference game before we turn our focus solely to the Ivy League. Kickoff is noon Eastern. You can watch the game on NEC Front Row.